that?
What?
Good. All right. So I've always felt a very interesting way about the Night Stalker. One, I totally agree with Josh. Cool effing name. I'm sorry for any victim or victim family connected to the Night Stalker, but that is, if you're gonna get a name, that's pretty damn cool. I think because we were kids growing up at the time, it's cool to us because of Knight Rider, frankly. But the funny thing is with Rich, huh? Yeah, right. Yeah, someone called Kit. The funny thing with the Night Stalker for me is several things. One, he almost didn't have a chance, meaning that if you believe in influence and you actually look at the guy's life, his biggest hero was his cousin who came back from Vietnam and loved to brag to Richard, who at the time was like 10 years old, loved to brag to him and show him Polaroids of women that he had raped, murdered, and killed, and in some cases, posing with heads. I'm not here to argue nature and nurture, but I will point out if a 10-year-old's best influence is seeing that, yeah, it's going to affect that child's upbringing. And then when he watched that same cousin shoot his wife in the face, shoot her dead, just because, he then moves on to live with his sister, whose husband was a giant peeping Tom and loved to get his kicks off by just going around at night and looking at women through, spy techniques, if you want to even call it that. He was on his way there. Then you add in the other part that white America really doesn't like to look at, but fact of the matter is there's a reason why you only have so few people who are serial killers that are not white. And that is because if you also probably break down some of the abuses that this kid had through growing up in El Paso as a Mexican American, probably wasn't even viewed as American, even though the man was born in Texas. All of these different influences makes it almost impossible for him not to get to where he was. Now, that being said, considering he did all those things, I always found it amazing how inept our policing was around the fact that they could not catch a guy who was high as balls all the time. As Josh pointed out, his teeth were ragged from constant drug use, and they still couldn't catch this guy as he made his way to 15 kills. Probably double that. They just only were able to bag him on 15. And so it's a very interesting thing, the Night Stalker. I really think he could have been prevented in a number of different ways. However, it to me is another example of America. If you continue to pressure individuals into a moment, you are going to get an explosion.
That also gave me some chills. You were right about that. You were right about his cousin. I did know that fact, and that's why I like having discussions, because it's hard to hit on everything yourself, and I don't want to. Like, I want it to be an open discussion. Also, just while his one thing that may have absolutely truly nothing to do with it in the strictest sense of nature, nurture, and him becoming a killer, but in what you were talking about, Rashawn, in when you continue to mold someone into the moment, right? When you force them, right? And that's kind of what we're talking about. The zeitgeist, the killer, the zeitgeist. His mom, while she was pregnant with him, was working in a factory in Mexico before moving to El Paso, and was in completely substandard working conditions and exposed to carcinogenic chemicals, breathing them in, soaking them in through her skin. I mean, God knows, right? Who knows? It certainly never helped the boy, this poor child, and didn't help his mother. His father also beat him. And, these are all these factors, right, coming from truly abject poverty and in a difficult way. Now that's okay.
And if I may, just one more thing,
sure.
Since we are talking about attractiveness, I know I'm adding on to my 5 minutes. I apologize. He is, in fact, to me, an actual attractive man. And also, when you look at his features and then think about where pop culture was during that time, with rock and roll and how most of the most popular artists were looking, he fit right into the point where walking around Skid Row, it's probably not too surprising that a lot of people found him attractive, considering what he looked like. He looked like a guy coming out of an MTV video set.
Well, and he got pictures sent to him that were, more than headshots. Let's just say that much, though. All right, we had some women in the courtroom. Clean up, aisle my panties. Okay.
Back in the day when working a photo booth was one of the best jobs in the world for that reason.
I'm sure there was some quite interesting stuff, and very interesting that you brought up Skid Row because he lived at the Cecil Hotel, another documentary I just worked at. I don't actually
check it out.
Check it out. Good. Always a good thing. It's just an interesting thing. I'm not necessarily really going into the full supernatural aspect of it or paranormal, but it's just interesting. It's just a fascinating piece of history, right? That he's one of a couple of serial killers that lived in the same spot.
I'm officially going to put a pin in that subject right about here and adjourn this meeting for this week. Join us next week as we continue to delve into the dark side of human consciousness and pop culture and ask the question, does the killer make the decade or the decade make the killer? While we have you here listening, we just want to ask you to pop on over to Apple Podcasts, no matter where you're listening to us. And please take the time to write a review for us and rate us as well. It really helps the podcast out and helps us spread the nefarious agenda of the Steam Gentlemen. We want to steam power the entire world before we're through, and with this is the best way you can help us do just that. This is Josh, the Birdman, telling you to stay safe, keep your fire lit, and keep your head of steam on.
I'm telling you, Josh, you're leaving money on the table by not hitting record right when we start.
There is that. You're probably right. We'll try and do it. All right, give me 5 of that.
Oh.